Hello, I'm Thea Petrou. Today I'm reading from my sample translation of Abel Quentin's novel, The Seer of Étampes. The book is seeking a publisher and it has been awarded a grant by the Albertine Translation Fund. The novel charts the downfall of an anti-hero. Jean Roscoff, a divorced and recently retired academic, is succumbing increasingly to his alcohol habit. To give his life direction, he embarks on a biography of his idol, the little-known Black American poet and jazzman Robert Willow, and we follow them both into the politico-literary scene of 1950s Saint-Germain-des-Prés. However, Roscoff soon finds himself accused of neo-colonialism and cultural appropriation, becoming the target of escalating online abuse and violence. Caught between left-wing cancel culture and his own stubborn beliefs, the protagonist accelerates on his downward spiral to a thrilling twist at the end of the book. I'm reading from the point where Jean has gone to stay with his best friend Mark on the coast. I made €4 million this year, said Mark. We were walking along Wissant Beach on the Opal coast. Mark had invited me to spend the first week of September at his house, ideally situated on the beachfront. His wife, who didn't like me much, had decided to stay in Paris. We were walking slowly against the wind. We almost had to shout to be heard. €4 million. Those words came as a blow. And the worst thing is the person who dealt that blow, my friend Mark, co-founder of the firm W&W, had done it almost sorrowfully, without any pleasure. He had only mentioned it because it was vital to the subject of our conversation, the development strategy of his law firm. He wasn't showing off, and had even attempted various contortions to answer my question. Have you had a good year, Mark? Without resorting to the vulgarity of a cryptic answer. But he could clearly see that if he hid this truth behind the modest veil of a vague response, I can't complain, he would not be understood. Nobody would be able to assess the scale of his appalling success. In doing this, Mark was not seeking admiration, but rather to present the advantages of the market economy in concrete and eloquent terms, hoping perhaps that others might be inspired to follow his example. Because, despite all his faults, Mark was rather a good friend, good at sharing, the sort of guy who would have preferred it if all his friends could be rich too. Hearing him talk about his success, I was thinking to myself that my relationship with Agnes had been a big mistake from the outset. She should have been with Mark. They would have made excellent partners. Agnes was dominant, reptilian, uninclined to fits of anger, pragmatic, consistent, and not in the slightest bit a daydreamer. There was no way she hadn't seen what I, as a young activist, could already see in Mark. Country homes, a coupe, maybe even an English maid. Why had she chosen me? I had a lot of potential, no doubt, from an intellectual point of view, but I also had a reputation of chronic instability and, already, serious drink problems. Above all, I was an arrogant bastard who liked the sound of his own voice. Mark was a safer investment, looking down on the world with the authority of his 6 feet. He was there the evening I met Agnes, when her blue-green eyes and volcanic breasts had struck me with all the force of a double uppercut to the chin. Had he chatted her up? My memories were hazy, but I had been convinced of it in the last years we were together. At the very end it had even become an obsession. I fell back on the charge with destructive tenacity every time we argued. I hurled treacherous remarks at her. At every reproach from Agnes, I would storm off, hissing that she would have done better to choose him, and there was no use her telling me otherwise. I knew that she secretly regretted it. And then I would lose it, behave like a moron. I accused her of sleeping with him. After all, they were the same breed. In other words, all this was a convenient way of sidestepping her legitimate questions and avoiding having to explain myself. Why I was laying in until 1 p.m. whenever I didn't have a lesson. Why the apartment stunk of stale tobacco. Why I slagged off her friends from Bain and Company on the pretext that they had a shoddy grasp of grammar. Why I was incapable of surprising her other than by putting my students' papers away with all the ski equipment. Why I never made an effort. Mark's world was one of wide avenues, fossilised with boredom, red carpet parades, three-wheeled scooters, letters on thick-headed paper, wooden panelling and design-piece furniture, private couriers, mauve socks, shoes with buckles, initials embroidered onto Charvet shirts, expense accounts, single-figure arrondissements in Paris, tyrannical clients, stiletto heels, and money. He only ever left it for rare excursions into the world of public affairs. Middle-of-the-range sofas, flags, bottles of crystalline, average suits, Renault Velsatis and Bic pens, or that of the law courts, crabby court clerks, fitted carpets, false ceilings, gendarmes wearing earpieces, glass booths, swipe cards, numbered desks, and hushed conversations. We had become friends in the signal regiment at Montélimar during our military service. Mark was thrashing everyone in spitting contests. Me, I was just trying not to accidentally shoot myself with my rifle. I gave a whistle. 4 million. That's a lot of cash, Mark. That would probably cover the running of the history department at Paris 8 for the next 10 years. Now the mist had lifted, the Dover cliffs were visible in the distance. Some way off from the shore, a ferry was heading towards the English coast. I had finished the first 100 pages. I felt that I had something presentable, or at least something good enough to show someone. I had arrived a few days before Mark. He had lent me the keys, anxious that I have a change of air. Anxious, probably, to get me away from Balto and its temptations. He had joined me on the Saturday at around noon, euphoric, with a bucket full of live lobsters. Thank you.